Look, the Republican Party has a minoritarian, their strategy for maintaining power is a minoritarian one. I say that without any type of value judgment. It's simply the case. Their plan, and they made this decision within the past decade, it really does appear, maybe in the past 15 years, that they could either, following George Bush's attempt to expand the Republican Party via immigration reform, ultimately. I mean, that was
George W. Bush, who won with a minority.
George W. Bush, who won with a first time out, won with a minority of votes in this in the 2000 election, majority at the Supreme Court, as it were. But he and Karl Rove understood, from a demographic perspective, we need to make the Republican Party a little bit less white. And they attempted things like immigration reform and to have a lot less hostility towards Latinos and Hispanics. And that was rejected by the party at large. So at that point, Plan B became, how do we run the country in what is ostensibly a democracy with less votes? And we've seen it in 2010 was their big move in terms of gerrymandering. The Senate helps them out. In fact, the Senate was created with as a buffer against full-on democracy in this country. The Supreme Court, there has been pretense for a long time, and at various times more or less, that it was above politics. Clearly it is not. And so that's where we're at this point. And so we'll check in with Ari about that. And then Aaron Kleinman, like I said, will give us an update on what appears to be a growing awareness amongst Democrats that, states are sort of important. Can't really ignore that. Meanwhile, back to the federal government, we still have no definitive answer as to who is going to control the House. More than likely, it's going to be the Republicans. They are one seat away. They are at 217 right now, officially speaking. They are one seat away from control. That would be 218, 435 members of the House. 218 is just one vote more than half. And there are 9 races extant. And the Democrats have 209, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? Yes. And so if the Democrats win all 9, then they will have a one-person lead. They're not going to. And so the question is, how big will the Republican majority be? The biggest it can be is 10. The smallest, theoretically, at this point, could be 1. But we will see. All right, let's get into this. There is a leadership fight in the Senate, and I think they're voting on it today. Is that right? Rick Scott, the former head, I don't know when that position ends, of the
hopefully soon
Republican Senate Campaign Committee, and Mitch McConnell, the Senate, or I should say Minority Leader in this instance, they're going to have a little struggle for who's going to be in charge of the Republican Party. If it was me, if I had to choose, I would choose Rick Scott.
Yeah, because perfect embodiment.
It's a perfect embodiment. He's also, I don't think he's terribly bright, and or at least not. I don't think he's as adept at this as McConnell is.
He doesn't hide the ball.
He doesn't. And here's Mitch McConnell addressing this leadership challenge.
One of the criticisms from Senator Scott and others who agree with him is that your decision not to have an agenda to run on opened up Republican candidates to attacks, that they didn't really stand for anything. What is your response to the criticism that you are partially responsible for?
Every one of our candidates knew what they were for, expressed it quite clearly. It's pretty obvious, and all of you have been writing about it, what happened. we underperformed among independents and moderates because their impression of many of the people in our party in leadership roles is that they're involved in chaos, negativity, excessive attacks, and it frightened independent and moderate Republican voters. And we saw that, which is why you all recall I never predicted a red wave. We never saw that in any of our polling in the states that we were counting on to win. There was no wave. We had national issue set that was favorable, but as a result of our own, the perception many of them had that we were not dealing with issues in a responsible way and that we were spending too much time on negativity and attacks and chaos, they were frightened. And so they pulled back. We, in 2 states.
Pause it for 1 second. I just want to interrupt here because he is being so cautious in not upsetting the vast, like the strength of the Republican Party.
The chaos agents.
And let's be here. I mean, there's a couple of things to point out. Obviously, chaos is what they're associating with Trump. And that's what they're going to call it. Because ideologically, there is no daylight between Donald Trump and any of these other Republicans. There is none. It really is. I mean, the reason why he says chaos is because it really is presentation. Period. End of story. There is no daylight between the idea that, like, we know what was the national issue they were running on. We know what it was. It was transphobia. I mean, if there is one consistent theme throughout this entire election, whether it was in Michigan where all their ads were about trans people and the threat from trans ideology and the idea that, women's sports will never be the same, and from Florida to Washington State, from Maine or New Hampshire with Bolduc down to, I don't know, to Cary Lake. I mean, the one issue they had was transphobia. And I don't know, I'm sure that Donald Trump has been talking about it, but he's not leading this parade of he's definitely going to jump on it.
I'll dip my toe occasionally, but yeah.
But this is not, this did not come from Donald Trump. This did not come from Donald Trump at all. They were on this kick and developing it back during the Obama years with the trans bathroom supposed controversy.
Do you think Trump came up with critical race theory?
Exactly.
Chris Rubin.
No, but honestly, this is. I mean, to be fair, Trump did run explicitly on racism,
Right.
But to the extent that there was a national platform that the Republicans were running on, I would challenge anybody to show me the data that shows on dollar for dollar, word for word, that it wasn't transphobia they were running on. And so that had nothing to do with Donald Trump, but chaos, it's like, they're just not, and really, like, did Marco Rubio run any different campaign than Bolduc? Maybe he switched back and forth on the election a little bit more, Bolduc did. But give me a break. So this is all BS. It's just that they got bad candidates, people who were just full-on lunatics as opposed to ideological lunatics. That's what he means by chaos. They just didn't present well. I mean, Blake Masters just looks like a lunatic. Continue.
Attacks and chaos, they were frightened. And so they pulled back. We, in 2 states, for example, they're just crushed by independent voters, Arizona and New Hampshire. So we learned some lessons about this, and I think the lesson's pretty clear. Senate races are different.
I don't think so.
Candidate quality, you recall I said in August, is important. And in most of our states, we met that test. In a few of them, we did not.
I mean, did they really meet that test? And
in
where did
most
they meet that
states?
state?
What does most mean?
Ron Johnson hung on in Wisconsin. I'm kind of trying to come up where they got those quality candidates to come in there. Florida Democratic Party is a disaster.
And what's funny is, like, I think the one that they kept running on, or at least advertising as the most quality candidate, was Adam Laxalt in Nevada, who in his own right in the state had a slew of his own, like, state-specific problems when he was Attorney General of Nevada. And he was the best one. He was the cream of the crop.
Was it J.D. Vance? I mean, J.D. Vance was outpaced by DeWine,
Right.
2-1 in terms of the margin of victory. So I don't know. I think the problem is that the National Republican Party has no reason to exist that doesn't involve either racism or transphobia or xenophobia.
Mike DeWine beat his Democratic opponent Nan Whaley by about 25%, and it was 6.5% for between Vance.
Okay,
and
so
Ryan.
I stand corrected. He was outperformed by DeWine 4-1. I mean, the National Republican Party has none of that. Now, they're still going to be effective because you have some very, very conservative, transphobic, racist, xenophobic parts of this country that also want tax cuts. And there's a lot of money being expended for that. So that's where we're at.
McConnell's such a good politician where a question can be like, it said you didn't have like a message for this election. And all his responses, we know what the message was. It was the crazies that got in the way of the message.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Well, yeah, what was that message again? That would have been the follow-up. What was the message?
Right.
Can you just spell it out in bullet points?
Yeah. How about a bullet point? Like, just give us what was the Republican message in that instance? Now, to be fair, the Democratic message was a little bit muddled, but it was, we're just not those guys. And at the end of the day, that turned out to be far more palatable.
Republicans shouldn't think that they can win popularity contests.
Yeah. Well, I think they also, I think they know that. Oh, we should also say breaking news. Mitch McConnell reelected as Senate Minority Leader. Do we know what the vote was, or did they just basically say like it was a secret vote and then everybody unanimously voted for McConnell?
It was 37-10 to 1. 37 McConnell, 10 Scott, 1 vote present.
Oh, I like those numbers.
So I guess maybe we'll see some reporting about who specifically were the 10 and the 1, but as of now, I think it's just the.
It's a one
tally.
abstained?
One voted present. Someone just voted present. Didn't.
What a coward.
Yeah.
What a coward. Mitch McConnell's on my list of people who, if they got hit by a bus, I think it would be better for the country. I mean, I don't know how else to put that. But
Sorry for the bus, though.
Yeah. But you cannot deny his expertise, at the very least, as a majority leader. I think he was more single-handedly responsible for Donald Trump's win than anybody else in keeping that Supreme Court seat open. Single-handedly has changed the entire tenor of the judiciary, from the Supreme Court on down. And so the more reason for him to leave the Senate, the better. And had he lost that race, I imagine he would not be long for the Senate. But we'll see. He's going to hang on, presumably because he knows that, like in 2024, the odds are much better that the Republicans will be in charge of the Senate. You just need, I mean, that's just a math problem. But we have plenty of time to talk about that. All right, well, listen, we've got to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Ari Berman, writer at Mother Jones, author of Give Us the Ballot. just a reminder, it is your support that makes this show possible. When you become a member at jointhemajority.report.com, not only do you allow this show to survive and thrive, you also get the free show, free of commercials, which I'm not going to lie, we're free of commercials today. So we have days like that. That's why we rely on our members. You guys make this possible, and thank you for that. Jointhemajority.report.com. Check it out.